Good evening. Welcome to Africa's Vision Network. African Visions Network features programs on Africa culture awareness, education, economic empowerment, and other issues, focusing on the African world. I'm Omar Ashaka, your guest host for today's program. This evening we will focus on health issues. Our guests this evening are Mr. T.C. Greer, who will talk about life after having a stroke. Also, we will have our guest, Mr. Samuel Bowman, who is a health awareness educator. And we also have the pleasure to have with us this evening Nadine, a colon therapist. Welcome to Africa's Vision Network.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you as our guest. I'd like to start with Mr. Greer. When did you have your stroke?
April of '95.
Did your body tell you anything, and give you any signs that you might be faced with a stroke?
Yes, it did. I didn't realize it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was on the job working, and I passed out one day. And so when I came to, I started taking the aspirins. I don't know why I took aspirin, but I guess, just automatically I did it. But over the next, couple of weeks, I kind of like my shoulder started aching on me, my legs started aching, I started giving out on my knees. And so these are all the signs, but as being like, macho, we don't realize a lot of times what's happening to you. So I just took it for granted and kept on going. And when I actually that day they came me to the hospital, that's when I realized that I was in trouble.
Well, tell us a little bit about your lifestyle. Do you think your lifestyle had anything to do with
a whole lot?
Stroke?
A whole lot. I was in the fast lane when I was a musician, you know what I'm saying, writer. And I was in the fast lane when I said I was I wasn't eating properly. I know that I wasn't sleeping properly. I was working like 3 jobs and doing my music. And so I know I was just only doing it to myself. I really knew that, you know what I'm saying? Because once you get out there and your body just ain't gonna take it. It's like anything, it's like a car. And if you don't put good juice in it, it ain't gonna happen. And I was not eating right and all these kind of things. So that's where it all ended up at, having that stroke,
Well, let's talk about some of your eating habits. What were you eating that you think may have contributed to
fast food?
Stroke?
Fast food, hamburgers, more hamburgers. I mean, just hamburgers. That's what I was. I was living off of hamburgers. I mean, that was my 95% of intake in my body. I wasn't eating any like green leafy vegetables like I was supposed to. You know what I'm saying? So over the years, it just take a toll on you. You know what I'm saying? When you eat beef, you know what happens to you. When that goes right in your stomach, just hangs right there. You know what I'm saying? It lays right into your stomach, and that's what happened to me. Arteries was blocked. I mean, I didn't have just one artery. I had a lot of arteries blocked. So I'm saying I was in trouble right from the get-go. You know what I'm saying? Wow. So I'm trying to pass it on to somebody that's sitting out there now that we were talking to. Please look at me and take some advice. Eat properly and stop doing the wrong things. I mean, that's all we got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me ask you one quick question though. You are a mature gentleman. Why do you think, though, you recognize that those hamburgers were not good for you? Why did you continue to eat food that you knew was not good for you?
Sometimes we do it from, like I say, a lack of knowledge, but sometimes we just do it on stupidity, you know what I'm saying? Because we know how to take care of ourselves, but sometimes we just do it anyway. We just push the envelope over the edge. I mean, at times when you can sit down and take, say, an hour and eat a meal, you won't do it. You'll stop at McDonald's and you'll stop at Burger King because it's so convenient. And by me working at Bolin Air Force Base as a cook, what that gives you? An opportunity to do what? Eat fast food, leave that and go someplace else and eat fast food. You know what I'm saying? You never eat a meal, you know what I'm saying? That's what it's all about.
Well, speaking of eating habits, we're going to speak now with Nadine, the colon therapist. What is a colon therapist? Tell our audience what is a colon therapist and how did you become one?
Okay. A colon therapist is someone who's professionally trained using a hygienic method of cleansing the colon. The colon, on the average, is about 5 to 6 feet long and 2.5 inches in diameter. So what colon hydrotherapy do with pressure and temperature alternation is hygienically cleanse the colon from beginning, that is the rectum, to the end, that is the cecum. And it cleanses the colon of a lot of putrefied and fermented waste material. TC was speaking of, the constant eating of hamburgers. And when you think of meat, it takes at least 3 days for your body to break down and process and eliminate meat. So if you can imagine taking a piece of meat and leaving it out on the counter for 3 days and coming back to it, you can imagine what that looks like and smells like.
Wow.
And that's what goes on the inside of your body. And that builds up into toxins that get into your bloodstream and spread to every gland and organ in the body. The other thing with regard to the colon is that it's called a neuromuscular structure, meaning it has reflex points on it that corresponds to every gland and organ on the body. So when there's a disturbance in the colon, there's also a corresponding disturbance in that part of the body. So there's a saying that says, death begins in the colon, and so do all cures.
Okay.
Who are some of the people that might receive your therapy?
Omar, I'm working now, and I'm committed to working in the inner city, in the black communities, on the front lines of D.C., so that people like TC can have an opportunity to be educated about the proper ways that God has, instructed us to eat and to live. And so my clientele, actually, I treat anywhere from small kids to the elderly population. And they're predominantly, within the African American community.
Okay. Are they sent to you by referrals? How do you build up this clientele?
Yes, that's a good question. My clientele to date has been referrals. It really has. I have not had the opportunity to do the marketing as of yet, but it has been built on referrals.
Okay. How are you viewed by the mainstream health professionals? Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, being a colon therapist?
That's an excellent question, because we're not doctors, we're not medical staff, so we cannot diagnose and we cannot treat as colon hydrotherapists. And often I get clients whom, of course, I like to work with, the medical profession when I have a client, and helping that client to work through his or her health challenges. But I find that a lot of the health practitioners, especially the doctors, have not even heard of colon therapy. They're not even aware of what colon therapy is. And they sometimes advise their clients against colon therapy, thinking that, it can cause the colon to, to burst in some way.
Okay.
So they're very miseducated.
Okay, and you kind of just ended with the answer probably to my question. But I do find it fascinating when you say that some doctors are not even aware of, did I hear you correctly, the colon
Oh yeah,
process?
They're not even aware of the procedure and how it works. Yet, this was a very prevalent procedure in the 1930s. And that was just before the advent of the pharmaceutical industry. Most doctors had colon therapy equipment in their office.
Okay, because when I think of colons too, I go back to when my grandmother and mother, they used to do the old-fashioned enemas, and
Exactly.
And so it sounds like this is a more advanced type
Exactly.
process.
Exactly. With the advent of, the whole technological age. Actually, we have gone from the term colonic to colon therapy or colon irrigation. And that gives us a more therapeutic approach to not only cleansing the colon, but taking a very distorted and diseased colon and retoning, reshaping, and restructuring that colon through water and pressure. And so, as you were speaking about the enema cleanses the first 1 foot, that is to the rectum, which is 12 inches of the colon, while the colon irrigation cleans the entire 5 to 6 feet of the colon.
Which is quite fascinating to think that is that long.
It's almost as tall as you are.
Right. That's intriguing.
All right.
Mr. Bowman, your health education...
Health
advisor.
awareness educator, yes.
Okay, health awareness educator. How important do you think it is for people to understand their body, in particular, let's say, in regard to the small intestines and the large intestines, as it relate to the colon?
Well, I think it's very important. When you were talking a moment ago, Omar, about the enemas, it took me back to when I was a kid. When I got sick, that was one of the first things my parents did for me. And years later, when I was experiencing some issues, I did find a colon therapist. This was maybe 10, 15 years ago, and underwent a treatment for a period of time. And that's when my awareness was really raised about the importance of this issue around digestive and eliminative issues. And from that point on, I've just continued to do my own personal research and know now, without a doubt, based on my own personal experience, that digestion and elimination is at the very heart of health. And to the degree that you can address that on a daily basis through proper internal hygiene, we pay a lot of attention to the outside, but internal hygiene, including colon and digestive elimination, proper elimination, is just very important to overall health.
Let's talk about proper elimination. Help us out and give me your definition of proper elimination so our audience can clearly understand what you mean by that.
Yes, that's a good question. What I have learned over the years is this. Most of us eat 3 meals a day, okay? Especially those that work in an office environment or, are out in the workaday world. From my understanding, the colon can only safely hold 2 to 3 meals at a time. So if you're eating 2 to 3 meals a day, you should, for good health, be eliminating 2 to 3 times a day to remove toxins from the body, because we eat, and they're byproducts that have to be removed from the body. Most people, and you've seen it in the news, don't eliminate 2 to 3 times a day. It's more like once a day or less. So the question is, where do the rest of those meals go? Where do they go?
That's a good question. Looking forward to that answer. Right?
Well, the colon has an amazing ability to hold and expand as these meals get backed up. And what happens is the colon will stretch, and actually one of the outward signs of that is an enlarged abdomen. This is an issue that also causes something called auto-intoxication, because after a while these meals that have continue to be left in the body do become putrid. The toxins spill over into the rest of the body, and the body has to do something with those poisons.
Okay. I would imagine also, if with this enlarged abdomen, that has to have an impact on some other organs within the body.
Yes, from my understanding, it does.
Okay.
It does. It actually can press against as the intestines grow. It can grow in size and try to accommodate this extra matter. Can press against internal organs, and actually toxins can pass through the membranes of the intestines into the body, and that can be very harmful.
Wow. Tell us, what type of illnesses would result from this improper waste elimination?
Well, some of the medical research that's coming out is amazing. Many illnesses, as many as 60 or more, can be attributed to what they call auto-intoxication from having this issue with the digestion and elimination not being proper. Things like high blood pressure, diabetes. There's ongoing research that anyone can find on the internet. I'm seeing more and more articles pop up on TV about the kinds of illnesses that are byproducts of auto-intoxication.
Okay. Well, you mentioned high blood pressure. Let me turn back to Mr. Greer, because we do know that I believe sometimes maybe strokes might be associated with high blood pressure. After hearing the comments from Nadini and Mr. Bowman, do you reflect back on how your colon experience has been?
I want to know where were you? I need you. You know what I'm saying? You asked a good question, right?
Yeah.
High blood, I got all the above. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I think that's, you're right. I'm saying, listen, what we're doing, we're all learning now, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I can pass it on to somebody, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't think in the medical field that they're not telling us the real deal behind all the things that's happening to us. You know, like you say, I think it's when you say that, like when the food goes in and it stays there for for all day long, then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. You know, it's got to go someplace. So what happened? The liver, everything else started to absorb this poison. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what caused the blockage. I know it did. You know, those blockages happened to me, and I had quite a few. You know what I'm saying? So I can identify. That's what happened to me. You know, I can agree with you, 100%.
Let me go back to Nardini. If let's say some school's superintendent decided to give you a call and they had an interest in maybe trying to educate their students about more colon awareness, if you will, the proper elimination,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you would recommend to that superintendent or that school board for consideration to bring more awareness to the criticalness of understanding that, you know, you're having the appropriate waste elimination?
We've been really given a very simple process. The body is very, very complex and, you know, quite a mystery in the way that it operates. But we've been given a very simple process to follow in order to, you know, keep it optimal. And that is basically exercise, drinking of water, having diets that are high in fiber, less protein, having proper amount of sunshine. And so it seems almost too simplistic to be true. But certainly the education would start around the need for, proper elimination, what that was, as Samuel was speaking of, that children should be eliminating and allowed to freely be able to leave the classrooms to be able to eliminate, for every meal they're taking in. If they're eating breakfast there and lunch there, there should be at least 1 or 2 eliminations there at school. They need to be able to take in the amount of water during the day that they need, and nutrition is critical.
So if we were to conduct a survey, let's say whether it's in a daycare with toddlers or elementary school, high school, maybe even college, if we were to take a survey, what do you think the percentage would be in terms of those educators being informed and knowing of the necessity of proper waste elimination? Do you think the majority of them would know, or you think they would just have no clue of how important it is? I mean, especially when it comes to the toddlers. I mean, it's so critical. It sounds like it would be unfortunate if they're not training those kids and directing them at a very young age.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very easy answer. If you look at the particular educators and professionals' lifestyles themselves, and what they're actually doing, and what kind of, lifestyles they're actually following, will determine then what they're able to teach or share with others. So that tends to speak for itself in terms of where most people are with that level of knowledge.
Well, Mr. Bowman, as a health awareness educator, help me out. We're living in America, one of the most supposedly educated countries in the world, one of the most prosperous. Why is it that something like the colon process, as we were talking off camera, people know that they have to put water in their radiator, they know they have to put oil in their car. Why do you think that a subject like waste elimination is not something we talk about? That people they show sex on the television, they show murders. In your opinion, why do you think that this is something that's not being discussed yet is so essential to our health?
Well, I really don't know why. I just know that it is. It's taboo in this country to discuss issues around elimination unless it's in a joking form. But the truth of the matter is a lot of the obesity that we see in this country, and you hear about it all the time, it's everywhere, is an indication that we have a major issue with the eliminative processes. If I was speaking with a gentleman the other day who said that we're not so much overweight. He said we're overwaste. is the way he described it. And because we have access to so much here in terms of food, it's become a problem. I mean, we eat too much food, really, and we don't eliminate it properly, and that's a big contributory factor to people having too much weight, too much fat. So it is an issue that needs to be discussed.
Okay. Well, we're recommended to get checked for cancer, high blood pressure. Do you think it's time that maybe we should be pushing annual colon examinations?
Yeah.
Well,
and I think that's going on now, as a matter of fact. There are campaigns around that right now.
Okay. Well, that triggers a thought. I want to go back to Nadini. I remember when I was called I thought I was going to go in the military, and I had to have an examination. And part of the examination included a visit, if you will, to my colon area. Yet earlier you did mention that you didn't think that doctors were pretty much in tune with that critical area. When they have the examination and when they test your colon, what do you think they're looking for, and what do they do with those results? Just
Yeah,
curious.
actually, colon cancer is the second leading cause of death next to heart attack, heart disease in America. So they are beginning to, do colon checks, regularly. They encourage clients to go and have various tests for various things. And you're speaking of the digital rectal exams.
Yes.
Typically, they are checking for any kind of pain, any kind of bleeding. For men, they check the prostate area to see if there's any swelling. So it's just a routine exam. In terms of the whole overall colon health and how it impacts on health, I think that's where they fall short, because I just don't think there's much focus on that particular area in Western training medical schools, because we're talking prevention.
Okay.
And they're trained to deal with disease.
Okay. Well, as you all know, our topic for tonight is a health discussion without the doctor. Is there something, Mr. Bowman, that you can recommend to our audience where they could do some self-examination? For example, if they've gone to the bathroom and they've just completed some waste elimination, is there something that they can look for that might give them some idea that maybe something is not the way it should be?
Yes, and Nandini, I'm going to ask you to jump in when you feel appropriate, but there are certain indicators as to whether you have even a healthy bowel movement in terms of how it is formed. It should be, these are the ideal conditions. It should be odorless.
Yeah. Yes.
How many people have odorless bowel movements? It should be of good form and consistency. It should float. It should actually float on top of the water. If it takes a dive, then you have some issues there. But there's one thing that I'm passionate about, and that is the first thing we have to do is raise a level of awareness. And I make available to anyone who is interested a free video where a naturopath, a well-known naturopath for many years, talks about the whole issue of colon elimination in detail. And in 30 minutes, he tells more about this whole issue than we can sit here and talk about for hours.
Okay.
And I recommend everybody have an opportunity to see this.
Okay. But I want to capture real quick 3 of the examining points, if you will, that people can check for themselves. You said it should float, should be a certain form, and it should be odorless.
Yes.
Those are okay.
Those are
And,
All right.
and they should be eliminating for each meal that they're eating.
Okay. So that would average what, maybe, I mean, if they eat 3 meals a day?
2 to 3 bowel movements a day.
Okay. So if someone is maybe having 1 large bowel movement a week, does that suggest a problem?
Oh, that suggests a critical problem. That's what we would call acute impaction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
so when someone comes into my office, that's one thing I check, go over very thoroughly, the kind of bowel movements they're having, and we bring it out of the closet into the opening. And so we want to talk about the color, the smell, whether it's mucus in the bile, you know, whether it sinks to the bottom or floats to the top, and then how many bowel movements they're having.
Okay.
And then my goal is to, you know, very quickly get them up to 2 to 3 bowel movements per day.
Right quick, you mentioned color. Should there be a certain color?
Well, it depends.
in your
If
stool?
a person has a high protein diet, that means they eat a lot of meat, then it's going to be brown to dark brown in color.
Okay.
Vegetarians are going to have golden brown.
Okay.
And then, you know, there are certain other conditions that will signal a problem.
Well, I tell you, this is really an intriguing subject. We're very happy to have Mr. Greer because we do see that people can still enjoy life after having a stroke. I want to thank you very much for that information that you shared with us. And clearly, vibrant health does begin in the colon. And we hope that we can bring you back and talk more about this, but we're sure that someone in our audience has enjoyed and they're taking notes and they've learned something from this session, which is the goal of African Visions Network. So I want to thank you very much for coming and sharing your expertise, and thank you very much, Mr. McGrew.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And hopefully this might be the beginning of something new where we will see more colon examinations conducted each year. So
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
And
power of you, the power of you. You are the hope that comes shining through.
There's an extraordinary power right here in our community that can change the world around us for the better. It's the power of you and your local United Way to reach out and make a difference in all of our lives.
Oh, now you have the power. You are the one. The power of you. The power of you. You are the difference. You make dreams come true. Unite and there's nothing that we cannot do. Never underestimate the power